can't I be a feral? I always wanted to sleep and dream all day every day.
Shut the fuck up, you little space chick.
Space chick.
Not that kind of space chick. A space chicken.
But boobs.
Don't you want to be on the top? The best of the best? Nature's blessings on the damage meters and all that shit?
Sure, but why does everyone call me a space chicken? I want to be a space cock.
Listen, you have the power to manipulate space. Look, go blow up that mob over there.
Huh?
See? This is why you're a space chicken. But now, since you've destroyed the whole planet, we have to go to Shadowlands and learn about talents, gear, covenants, rotations, and more.
Don't tell Tyrande about this.
Like, comment, and subscribe for a chance to win a girlfriend.
Hey man, that's not how you get a girlfriend!
How would you know?
Shut the fuck up!
Now let's check out the talents, but respectfully and with consent. Nature's Balance is the go-to for all raid content. It's the most DPS in single target and the most reliable gain in AoE. Both raids and mythic dungeons will benefit with this one, but they shouldn't. They shouldn't, because for dungeons the encounters will be as flexible as your government. Both options are viable, but you really have only one that's viable. Force of Nature, helping your tank kite or drop stacks or recuperate for a small DPS loss on your end, can actually make the run smoother and maybe even allow pulls that were not possible without this one. Warrior of Elune seems to be mathematically better on more than 4 targets if you are not playing Venthyr, which is something you can reliably do only with good groups pushing high keys, during which Force of Nature will still provide more for your party. On the second row, all options are good provided you can use them properly, but Wild Charge has probably the most flexibility in all scenarios. The idea with this row is to be able to get tools to survive mechanics that would otherwise mess you up. Tiger Dash can be good in raids to swiftly dodge shit and move from one side to another, while Renewal can be useful if there are mechanics you physically cannot dodge and have to eat with your face, or if there's really no need for mobility at all, and an instant heal will save your chicken butt. Moving to the third row, you have affinities from the only other viable druid spec. Feral joke. Restoration affinity is the default in all scenarios. The passive healing is really good for something you never touch, and hey, if you ever wanted to heal and dodge the healer's fault stigma, you can throw a wild growth, 2 rejuves, and tell your healers to get good because you are doing their job for them. Not to mention that by getting Resto Affinity gives you access to Ursol's Vortex, which in keys is just too good to consider anything else. Alternatively, Guardian Affinity is a choice in raids when you need to have a bit more damage reduction or you want to bear soak some shit because, let's face it, you are a better tank and healer than your raid, and if they had 19 others like you, Echo wouldn't be shit. To go with any of the previous affinity choices, Heart of the Wild is the shit. Mostly for Resto Affinity, you can actually heal for a decent amount, enough to help solve a dicey situations if needed, granted every 5 minutes. It's basically one of the coolest stuff you can get as a druid to play a second spec every 5 minutes. In dungeons and maybe on bosses like Kill to Zod, you can take Mass Entanglement instead. This works especially well in Plaguefall on the first boss, where you can just root the big ad and keep slapping the boss, you know, with respect and consent. Mighty Bash might not provide as much utility, seeing as how there will always be at least one stun in your group. On the 5th row, the choice actually matters now. In raids, Incarnation Chosen of Elune will work best if you are a Venthyr, although it seems even Night Fae Boomies use it right now. Seems pretty well, and it offers you big ass burst every 3 minutes, which is the damage profile of choice for raiding. In dungeons, use Soul of the Forest regardless of what covenant you are. The AoE benefits far outweigh your other options, unless you just like Incarn, in which case, why even watch this video if you don't think I know what's good for you? I don't, trust me. I mean, I once advised Marcelian to put chili on his quesadillas, and I couldn't use the bathroom for a week. Nasty business. Next up, you have Stellar Flare in raids. Mostly because this is a lot of single target damage and you would rather go through puberty again than maintaining this in AoE. Although to be fair, Stellar Drift works as well, mostly for its utility of casting on the move. There are fights like Soul Render that focuses on messing up the ads real good, and really every boss except Guardian will be a good choice for Stellar Drift, but mostly you will want this in dungeons 100% of the time. Twin Moons is usually an alternative for M+, although passing out on Stellar Drift is just such a crime. And lastly, are you excited? You better be, because New Moon is finally viable in raids for non-Venthiers. Hell yeah! The buffs it got in 9.1 seem to have put it on the map, although its AoE value is close to none, sadly. Fury of Elune will be your default pick in every other situation. The burst in damage and astral power generation is pretty neat on a 1-minute cooldown. Solstice has been shot in the back, just like old passives with no rotational impact deserve. And here we get to the iffy part. Okay, so you want to be the very best, like no one ever was? To parse logs is your real test, and to gloat will be your cause. In that case, you will have to sim your gear. Go to raidboss.com, paste your character details or load them with your Battle.net account and see what gear combination pieces will be the best for you, or watch our sim video. Alternatively, you might actually have some sanity and want to be a normal human being.
Hey man, shut up, you parse too!
I want my big damage, okay? A base stat priority sees intellect at the forefront. What this means is that eye level will be king in all situations, with the exceptions of trinkets, rings, and necklaces, since most of the time they don't have intellect. So choosing the highest eye level will always work out for you when intellect is concerned. Moving past that and into the realm of secondary stats, Mastery and Haste are the best, with versatility and crit a bit lower down the list. This priority is there to mostly help you decide on incremental upgrades, but as always, if you want 100% accuracy, you'll need to sim. As a reference, these are how my stats are looking. Although simming stats directly is not always accurate, it does paint a picture of how big intellect is compared to the rest. Moving to consumables, and just saying this for the last time, sim your best shit. Otherwise, your lazy ass can go with Sinful Revelation for your weapon when raiding, or if you are looking at optimizing single target performance. Celestial Guidance is the dungeon/AoE counterpart that's a bit more universal, since it simply procs a main stat buff. Use Eternal Stats for your chest enchant with a Heavy Desolate Armor Kit addition for that extra stamina, cause if you're gonna be a fat chicken, then be a fat chicken. Staminas with a Z. Eternal Intellect will go on your bracers, and Fortified Avoidance on your cloak as the last defensive enchant, with any other additions being Quality of Life and up to your preference. In keeping with your stat priority, Tenet of Mastery will enchant your rings the best, with Masterful Jewel Cluster Gems for your sockets. These are easy to replace and can be swapped for their haste counterparts at any point where haste starts to sim better overall, or any other secondary stats. For your alchemy utility belt, slot in some Spectral Flask of Power and some Potions of Spectral Intellect. Top these off with some Shadow Core oil and you are good to go. After you eat all your feasts, since intellect is king. But hey, not everyone can live a lavish lifestyle unless you start selling books out of your own garage too. But if not, the iridescent ravioli with applesauce will be the next best thing. Patch 9.15 is almost upon us.
No, it's not.
And we are this close to having WoW 2.0.
No, we are not.
And alts will be playable soon.
There is no hope.
But at least covenants will be easier to change. Until then, you have two main options. Have fun or do big DPS. No, you cannot have both, and those are the options, and if you don't like it, don't vote. Woo! 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 Sorry everybody, I think that's the Lunar Shine talking. Last time I go out with Marcelian to gold share. It's fun, he says. You'll see night elf chicks, he says. Yeah, sure, if the 23 gnome dudes would fucking get out of the way. Venthyr! Venthyr is the new hot shit this patch after the major nerf to the balance of all things legendary and other boomy things like double onion trinkets for Night Fae. Venthyr seems to be the best performer right now, especially in high-end content due to the nature of Ravenous Frenzy and the legendary that extends its duration. Because of that, combat phases that last a lot will promote a super strong 3-minute burst window. Plus, you know, big damn. Your soulbind of choice will be Theater in most situations. Soothing Shade and Wasteland Propriety will be your starting path to build him up, especially when you can stand in the Umbrella, Ella, or simply choose the extra potency conduit route. Nadia for Dauntless Duelist can be a safer pick if you are not comfortable being forced to stay in the shade, and Thrill Seeker is still pretty good if it can be lined up with your cooldowns. Night Fae is another viable covenant and may even be better in low to average difficulty content, and where my ass is residing. Convoke is still incredibly stupid to press even after being nerfed, and going with Nia for raids with Nia Soul's Burrs is still the best choice, while in dungeons you want her poison trait instead. Whichever you end up going, you will need potency conduits still, starting with Endless Thirst for Venthyr Boomies, Precise Alignment as an alternative, Fury of the Skies for your third slot, and if you will be a Fey Boomy, Conflux of the Elements will make its way into your kit as well. For endurance slots, nothing really beats well-honed instincts, and you can tap it off with Ursine Vigor. As for the finesse options, Front of the Pack and Born Anew will serve you just well. When it comes to trinkets, really, you will either sim them with raid bots, and lucky you, we have a video on it, or you can check websites like bloodmallet.com, where you will find a list of the strongest trinkets to aim for, some of which can be the Inscrutable Quantum Device, especially if you are a Venthyr, since the 3-minute cooldown trinket will also align with Ravenous Frenzy. This also kinda changes your stat distribution a little bit, but this is a little bit too in-depth for a basic video guide like this one. Titanic Ocular Gland is a good second choice if you're going to raid for an extensive amount of time. Or you can go with the Unbound Changeling from Mists of Tyrnascythe instead. And of course, a noteworthy trinket to aim for is the Instructor's Divine Bell if you can do your mission table at a decent eye level. As for the Domination gear and shards, right now the Unholy set Chaos Bane seems to be the best. So your first goal is to get and upgrade the Unholy shards, and if you have the 2 extra shard slots, put the Beck and Core shards in respectively. Note that the bonus only works in the raid, so if your main goal is to do Mythic Plus, then maybe upgrade the Core, Beck and Diz shards first instead. As for the Legendary, crafted ideally in any slot except the head, shoulders, chest, feet and hands, would be ideal to make sure you will not overlap with the amazing tier set pieces. I mean the what players really want set pieces. I mean with a how do we make them grind for an entire patch set. Anyway, if you want to aim to become the best Venthyr Boomkin in the world, you want to craft Sinful Hysteria. This will be your ideal choice in all content, so long as you favor the red boys and gals. For overall purposes, Arcanic Pulsar is a good alternative and the ideal choice if you are a Night Fae Boomy, being still one of the most engaging and interesting legendaries, even though it is an ex-anima power from BFA. As for the weapons, sadly Boomy doesn't have awesome stuff like warriors, rogues or hunters, although the Maledict Opus is worth aiming for if you raid in any capacity, since it drops off Kel'Thuzad and hence will have an average higher eye level than what you will have normally. When you open on a raid boss, supposedly with Nature's Balance, you precast 4 seconds before the pull 2 Wraths back to back. Cast a Starfire next, then apply all 3 of your dots if talented. Use Ravenous Frenzy next, together with Incarnation Chosen of Elune. Pop a Star Surge quick, then go into 3 more Wraths. After this, you follow a simple priority by using Star Surge to avoid capping Astral Power. Next, you want to refresh your dots, Moonfire, Starfire and Stellar Flare. As you gain haste during your burst, you use Wraths to generate Astral Power up until 150% haste. Once you pass that mark, you generate Astral Power with Starfire instead. The idea of this burst window for you is to always approach it with around 60 to 90 Astral Power. Your trinkets and Incarnation at the ready as Ravenous Frenzy becomes available. The strong point of Venthyr Boomy is its capacity to deal stupid burst for a little over 30 seconds every 3 minutes. 4 seconds before the pool, you start casting 2 Wraths at max range since their travel time will be 4 seconds. This will get you into Eclipse. Follow it up with Starfire and apply your 3 dots, Moonfire, Starfire and Stellar Flare. Cast Celestial Alignment or Incarnation and follow it up with 2 Star Surges. Convoke next while dumping all your remaining Astral Power into Star Surges after your Convoke has finished. Then you use New Moon followed by Half Moon, another Star Surge, and then Full Moon. The basic single target priority sees your main goal to enter an Eclipse. Maintain Moonfire, Starfire and Stellar Flare next on the priority list. Cast Ravenous Frenzy timed with Incarnation at all times afterwards. If you are a Night Fae, use Convoke together with cooldowns and trinkets to the best of your ability, as long as you don't keep it too long off cooldown and risk wasting a potential cast. Spend Astral Power on Star Surges or Starfall if talented into Stellar Drift. Prevent capping on New Moon charges next. Use Fury of Elune after. Cast Wrath in Solar Eclipse as a filler and Starfire in Lunar Eclipse respectively. In AoE, your priority from the most important thing you need to do to the least starts by keeping Sunfire up if your targets will live for at least 10 seconds. Use Starfall on cooldown since supposedly you should be running Stellar Drift. These 2 points apply in all scenarios. Now, when you are not in an Eclipse, you want to keep up Moonfire on your targets as long as you firstly enter Lunar Eclipse as your next Eclipse. The mobs are grouped up so all can be hit with Starfire. There are a maximum of 5 targets for you to refresh Moonfire on. Said targets will live through your next Lunar Eclipse and you will not lose uptime on Starfall. If you can meet all of these requirements, refresh Moonfire. A bit nitpicky, but hey, you want that damn, right? After this, your next most important part is to enter your next Eclipse, preferably a lunar one. Once you are in Lunar Eclipse or both at the same time, use Star Surge to prevent capping Astral Power only when fighting up to 6 targets. Refresh Moonfire if you are fighting up to 4 targets and they will live through your next Eclipse. Lastly, cast Starfire. The reason you are okay with capping power on more than 6 targets is that simply spamming Starfire will net you more damage than Star Surges. When in Solar Eclipse, you will use Star Surge to prevent capping your resource, regardless of how many targets you face. Refresh Moonfire on up to 10 targets here if they will live through your next Eclipse and you won't impede your Starfall uptime. Use Starfire when you can hit 5 or more targets. The more mastery you have, the more you delay Starfire. For every 20% mastery, you add 1 more target to this rule, delaying Starfire further. Spam Wraths as a filler. If you are in your Ravenous Frenzy window, you start your priority by first only refreshing Sunfire during the last 30% of its duration. Keep Starfall on cooldown, refresh Moonfire on up to 6 targets when they will live long enough, until you reach 150% haste, or if fighting a maximum of 5 targets, use Wrath as filler and Star Surges to prevent capping, after which you transition into Starfire spam. As far as Convoke and Fury of Elune go, they both scale really well when you are in an Eclipse, so you would ideally cast them on cooldown during either both Eclipses or at least one, making sure you don't overcap Astral Power based on the number of targets discussed earlier. The rotation has been simplified, believe it or not, as much as we could without leaving any important stuff out. But there is so much more you can optimize on your Boomy. Get your butt into the Dreamgrove community, both Discord and website, and check out any advanced information you might want to take your Space Chicken to the next level. Also, special thanks to Tettles and Bora for providing us with feedback on this guide, because it has been a lot to get into for Boomies in 9.1. They are amazing Boomy theory crafters, and you can definitely chat with them and everybody that knows their shit about Boomkin in the Dreamgrove Discord community. Thank you guys for everything and for putting all of the kick-ass information available for everyone out there. Thank you to the Patreons as well for supporting the content. You guys rock, you make a lot of this possible, so thank you very much. We've been able to do a lot more cool stuff, and even more is coming on the way, so stay tuned. And if you, dear viewer, want to support us a little bit more, check the link to our Patreon down below. That's where you will find all the contact details, where you can find people like Tettles and Bora out there doing their own stuff. Thank you very much for watching the video. Hope it was helpful, and we'll see you next time.
I've been loving it then, I still love it now. Still, I play WoW. Still, I play WoW. Getting better every day, let me show you how. Cause still, I play WoW. Still, I play WoW. It's getting harder to stay, but at the end of the day, it's a guilty pleasure, so just log in and play. Whether it's classic or retail, I'ma do a /bow. Still, I play